Thank you, Anurag. What a pleasure it is to be here today. This is our inaugural Randstad Leadership Dialogue series, the first in a series in partnership with BW Business World. And it's in a very important topic today. And I think Anurag did a fine job of kind of laying it out for us, what compassion is all about. I also want to give a warm welcome to our guest panelists who have joined us today. Many on this panel are old friends of mine. It's very interesting. You'll see Manmohan, who's joining us today. I think the last time I saw Manmohan was just before the country went into lockdown at Bangalore airport as we both returned on a flight from Delhi. And I remember saying farewell to Manmohan at Bangalore airport, saying, well, let's see how this is going to unfold. Hopefully it'll be over soon. That was way back in early mid-March, Manmohan. And here we are now, several months later. I'd like to look back and just reflect on the journey we've been on here over the past few months. If you think about the process that we've all gone through as leaders, model that we're seeing more and more, it's the 3 R's. First, in crisis, you respond. And the response in this case with COVID was really about moving quickly to ensure that our people were safe. And the CXOs that I've engaged with over the past few months, that's really been their key focus in the first phase. Let's make sure our people are safe. And we did the same thing at Randstad, and I'm sure those of you who are watching this as well went through the same process. Make sure people are in a safe place. The second part of the response was to make sure that they're connected. We now went from the so-called business as usual, working in an office, to being forced to work from home. And that brought along lots of challenges, especially here in India. I'm based in Bangalore, which is arguably one of the more connected cities in India, but at the same time, we face challenges to get all of our colleagues enabled and connected across the 4 corners of India, all the way up to Guwahati down to Kochi. And we did that in 48 hours. And I heard some remarkable stories from companies in India that traditionally were really about presenteeism. It was about reporting to a desk in an office and working in an office that really weren't prepared for this sudden need to work from remote or work from home. And they did it. And it opened up our eyes that we can do this. We can work from remote. And not only that, we can stay connected, we can stay engaged, and we can deliver services to our customers. And of course, collaborate as well. So that's part of the response, also followed up with the engagement piece. And if I look at what I've seen here in India, and certainly around the world of Randstad, where we are 39 countries, there's been all kinds of innovative approaches to engagement. But India, in many ways, is the most creative that within Randstad ourselves, but many of the customers, the clients that we work with, some that are on this panel today, of course, really interesting, innovative ways to engage, not only about fun, but also about being connected and making sure that we're in touch with our people. And to me, that's evidence of compassion. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what compassion means to me, because I've had some very important discoveries as a leader over the past few months, just about the value. So the engagement phase for me was when the wheels really started to move. People were safe, they were connected, they were engaged, and then it was about moving on to the recover phase, the second R. So we had respond, now we're into recover. Recover is really about finding your feet, finding your balance. We had a huge rock dropped in our pond, and then we started to find our legs and find our feet, and then get accustomed to what people started to call the new normal. But I think we all realized very quickly that this is not a new normal. This is absolutely abnormal. It's nothing compared to anything we've had in the past. So it's not familiar. Instead, I would like to call it the new world. We're moving into a new era. It's a new day, and it's a new way, a way of engaging, collaborating, working, giving service, and so on. And so we started to recover. We were not only can our teams be productive in this new world, working from remote, using technology. And in Randstad, we talk about tech for touch, using technology not to replace touch, but to give better touch in this new world. And that's really what the recover phase was all about. And this is where I saw a clear kind of separation with the organizations that took the leading position, that really gained the leading edge. They moved from gloom and doom, and they said, okay, we can do this. We've learned some valuable lessons during this recovery phase. Now let's move to the third R. And that's where organizations are now. Certainly the leading organization across industries in India and beyond. The third R is reimagine. And that's really where we're at now. Reimagining the way we connect, collaborate, the way we engage, of course, the way we deliver, and ultimately the way we lead. And this is where I've made some discoveries as a leader. And I'd like to share some of that with you as well. Like many leaders who are a bit seasoned, I'm over 50, so I can say that I grew up in a generation where the leadership model, competencies, right? Of course, it was about delivering on results. Words like agility started to appear in the leadership assessments, as I'm sure our HR leaders will recall fondly when agility started to come. We heard things like EQ and IQ. EQ was this new innovative way to measure a leader's competency to engage, connect with people, and so on. And then we heard a lot about empathy. And I found that very interesting. I've done some kind of reflections as well about that in recent days. And I even looked up the word empathy because we have our own kind of understanding of what it means. But when you look at the dictionary definition of empathy, it's very interesting. It says, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Now, the leadership 9-box grid that we've used for years in assessments and so on, we rank leaders on empathy. But you know, what I've discovered in recent months is empathy is not enough. In fact, empathy is quite reactive. And empathy, in fact, doesn't lead to action. What really triggers the action is compassion. So empathy can feed into compassion. But compassion, if you look at the definition, compassion is the sympathetic consciousness of others' distress together with a desire to alleviate it. There's a key word in there, the desire to alleviate it. The point here is that compassion is about taking action. Empathy is simply a feeling, understanding how someone else is feeling, but not doing anything about it. And I think many of us as leaders were guilty. Empathy was a box that we ticked. We needed to show empathy. We needed to ask how people were doing. And once we did that and we understood, it was less about the actions we took and was the process of asking and showing interest in the well-being of our people. We're graduating to the next level now. Compassion is more about taking action. And I think that's a question all of us need to ask now, particularly as we move into the new world. What are we doing to ensure our people are safe, are engaged, are connected, and able to shine, to be the best at what they do and in the place where they're working? You know, when I first came to India just over 3 years ago, Anjali, who's my CHR CPO here on the panel, she'll recall this fondly. In my office, I have a whiteboard. I'm a big believer in whiteboarding. I like to draw, you know, diagrams and come up with ideas and dream and ask what if. And I would typically be in my room with my CFO and the leaders of the businesses. We'd be huddled around the whiteboard and we'd be drawing up very complex diagrams, Venn charts, and then we'd come up with algorithms on how and metrics on how we were going to drive the business productivity, output, and so on, and deliver on the promise. Anjali would inevitably come in the room and say, hey, Paul, we need to talk about engagement, our engagement survey, our people survey that we do, something we call great conversations. We need to formalize our plan for learning and development, and so on. And I would look at Anjali and say, okay, once I get through the algorithm, we'll get to that. And we would reschedule or schedule it up for next week. I can tell you we've come to the exact opposite scenario. If you walk in my virtual room now with my virtual whiteboard, same thing. You'll see myself and my CFO and our leaders of the businesses gathered around the whiteboard. Big difference is Anjali is in the middle of that huddle, holding the magic marker, and she's drawing the algorithm, the diagram, which is all about engagement, all about caring for our people, all about ensuring that our people have everything they need to be safe and also to shine, to be their best. And you know, that has really changed the conversation, which means the metrics have been flipped to the other side. The metrics are an outcome of having all the stuff I just talked about, the stuff that Anjali is writing on the whiteboard. And we've all come to realize that. To me, that's the big revelation. Now, about compassion, if you think about what compassion really means, it's sympathy, empathy that leads to action. What are we going to do about it? The compassionate leader, to me, is not necessarily someone that lowers the bar on expectations. The compassionate leader is just as strict and fair as he or she would have been before COVID. But the compassionate leader also brings a sense of support, warmth, and a message and a promise that we are with you together on the journey. Again, I think that when we talk about high performance cultures, it is possible to drive a high performance culture in the middle of fear and ambiguity and adversity like we're seeing with this crisis. And I've seen leaders doing that. And I'm trying hard at Randstad to do, and I must say that we are growing in India. And that's largely because of the response we've taken when we started to introduce compassion into everything we do. So one of the things I urge all leaders to do now is to start your conversations with your people. Not about metrics, not about algorithms, not about productivity and output. Start with, how are you? How are you doing? How are you handling this situation? How's your family? I think it's very important that we begin with a genuine stance of being human. You know, how are our people doing? Because we know that when our people are safe and they feel cared for, they will be more productive. They will shine. And of course, the conversation also needs to finish with a promise of action that, hey, I'm here to support, ready to, you know, to give you whatever you need, and to take action when the need is there, even when it's not asked for. And that's where we see, for example, EAP programs being launched in companies and largely driven by HR. Why? Because HR, in a way, is the chief compassionate officer, has become the chief compassionate officer for many organizations. HR will take a very important role, has already taken an important role, certainly in this crisis. I think IT sprung into action to make sure people that everyone was connected. HR then jumped in and made sure everyone was safe and engaged. And then at the same time, in parallel, started to coach leaders on the importance of compassion in how they lead the organization. When I look at the COVID crisis, there's a mantra that comes to mind. Crisis brings opportunity. As a result of COVID, while there have been tragedies and we continue to see tragedies, at the same time, crisis brings opportunity. Opportunities for leaders to develop new skills, traits, and muscles. And one muscle is this notion of compassionate leadership, of starting the conversation with human-centric discussions, starting the conversation with care, genuine care, which also leads to action to support. So, you know, Peter Drucker has a wonderful phrase that we've all used for many, many years. It goes like this: culture eats strategy for breakfast. I want to change that on behalf of Peter Drucker and say one of the things we've learned in recent months is that compassion eats strategy for breakfast. I wish everyone stay safe, stay connected, and let's be more compassionate and be focused on moving forward together, shoulder to shoulder. Again, I thank you, Anurag, and the BW Business World team for partnering with us on this very important conversation today. And I look forward to hearing from the perspectives of our HR leaders here who are joining us today. Thank you again.